Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weather forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Over the last 3 days, we have seen some truly torrential rains that have formed across parts of the United States. I watched on June 8th as a stalled out boundary here had a storm that backbuilt along this area, dumping incredibly heavy rain and large hail. We saw yesterday a big supercell that went through this part of Montana as well, but in this area, some places received several inches of rain. Now your eye's probably drawn down here, farther to the south, over parts of Arkansas, Mississippi, and even parts of Oklahoma. I do expect for some declaration of disaster area in here, as some places have picked up over 15 inches of rain just in the last week. The broader cutoff low that's been here is moving through the Ohio Valley, and if I could just wrap up the storm forecast in this area, widely scattered storms over the next 48 hours. Could be heavy in parts of the mid-Atlantic into North Carolina, for example, as these storms come rolling through, but they're going to be hit or miss. Now, in this forecast video, we're going to be looking a lot at areas that have too much water and not enough water and what's coming through. For example, down here in parts of the Mid-South and the lower Mississippi River Valley and parts of the Southeast, soils are saturated. Anything we add to this area is going to cause immediate flooding. But there is a storm system we're going to watch carefully blow up right here late tonight, and it's going to move toward the east. And the question is, how much moisture will it return to the very dry soils in parts of the western Corn Belt? So with that as kind of our backdrop, let's take a look at the flow pattern. There's a broader trough feature here, a ridge to its south, and there's our little cutoff low finally moving through the state of Ohio right now. What will happen later this evening is, coming out of this trough, ejecting out of it, we're going to develop a low. And there will be a frontal boundary that slides to the east on which we're going to have some storms, and they could be quite nasty. I'll show them in just a few moments. After this, a very brief cool down, followed by this ridge expanding to the north. I know it's a lot of arrows on here, but that's going to bring the heat back in. Keep an eye down here as well, because the National Hurricane Center was watching a feature coming in through Central America, which maybe late next week could emerge in this part of the Bay of Campeche. And if its moisture moves farther to the north, it could hit very saturated ground and cause flooding. No, I am not calling for the development of a tropical system, but we're going to watch it carefully. Today, though, most of the story is going to be focused in the northern plains, where late tonight storms are going to fire right here, and there's already a moderate risk put out by the Storm Prediction Center for these storms later tonight. They will move as a large squall line over toward the east, and as they do, yes, we will see an increased risk of severe winds and hail, but a smaller risk of tornadic activity. What we need to know is how much rain did they put down and how far to the east do they make it. Elsewhere around the country, scattered storms. I want to show you the NAM model. Let's bring it back to the beginning and watch this. So this is the 12Z NAM. By 10 o'clock tonight, it's trying to blow those storms up right in through here. Now, they're going to start earlier over on the western border of the Dakotas, and there could be some severe storms in this part of Montana as well. The NAM is the most aggressive at moving these storms to the east, and you can see the squall line that's going to be forming in this area. Damaging winds possible with this, and it will build down the line into Nebraska. But then these storms, this is 4 a.m. Central Time. We tend to lose the instability that we need to keep them going. And you notice that the NAM model allows them to fizzle out as they go into parts of western Minnesota and Iowa, maybe not even getting past Des Moines. Now, there's always uncertainty with this, and this is just a model forecast, but it tends to favor continued development south, but breaking them up as they go into Iowa, and Iowa desperately needs this rain. Now, does this rain end a drought? No, it doesn't. It's rain, which we love to see, but it's not the type that's going to bust this drought. And the whole time this is going on, scattered storms here, and the low curling up into parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So going through Friday into Friday night, this is now getting out to Saturday morning into Saturday midday. There's the progression of that frontal boundary. So a brief cool down coming in behind this, but it's not going to last long. And look at the storms down here in the southeast. They're going to pop just as they normally do in summertime. It is important to note there's a deep low off the coast, and it is shoving moisture in through here. And yes, some of that could get into the Columbia Basin, which would be some critical rains there as well. But from here, I want to stretch out to our bigger models. And we're going to look at the 0Z European because I'm recording this a bit too early in the afternoon to get the 12Z in just yet. And you can see that it is dry in this area. It's got what's left of that cutoff low coming in through here, but no love for this system that's coming through in the European producing heavy rains. The GFS has got a little bit different scenario. This is the 0Z GFS. So this was the one that was released that matches the 0Z Ecmwf. But the GFS gets in faster, and I have the 12Z data to show you. Now, if we go back and forth, 0Z forecast, 12Z, we see that it's trying to keep the storms together farther to the east, but it's backed off on the rainfall totals here. And do these storms bring in relief to some of the drier conditions in parts of the central Corn Belt, southern Wisconsin? That is yet to be seen. We're going to have to watch it carefully. Now from there, I want you to notice how much moisture is showing up here at the end of the 7-day runs. It's in both the GFS and the European. And what's going on there is that the European model, even though the National Hurricane Center is not calling for development, make sure I'm clear there, even though it's not right now calling for development, the European model suggests that we could see some of the moisture from that system here they watched earlier in the week get into the Bay of Campeche and come north. And I'm just going to reiterate, this would be terrible if it got into the Mid-South and produced rain. We need to watch it. We'll get a new update of this throughout the next few days. I'll keep you posted, okay? But I've been working on some new stuff for you, and I'm excited. I spent the morning coding this up. We always talk about the models and compare them. Let's look at them side by side. And this is the trough ridge pattern. Now, as I play this forward, the differences in this first system have to do with the inflection of this little shortwave right here. The GFS has got it farther to the east and got less tilt than the European does. So the European flings that low up into Canada, and the GFS progresses it toward the Red River Valley. Yeah, it's subtle, but that's what happens. That's the difference. It's after that that I want you to see. Both models through midweek next week produce a massive ridge in the midsection, well, a little bit to the west of the midsection of the United States in the Canadian Prairie. And that's going to turn the heat back on, but we're going to keep the Gulf open, which means I think storms are still going to try to pop. There is a weak system that could skirt through the Canadian Prairie next Thursday, Friday. And to look at that, why don't we switch over here and look at side-by-side GFS on the left versus European on the right. Now, as we play this forward, what you're going to see is that through this evening, this is Thursday at 7, from 7 to midnight, that's when those storms are showing up. Now, the GFS has got them. The European does not. And I believe the GFS is more correct in this case on what it's doing here. Then the storms start to move, and that's when the European picks up on them. But both models try to bring them into Iowa, and they fizzle very quickly. Do you see that? Meanwhile, this entire time, scattered storms in this area. I know I'm not giving it much attention, but that's just what we're going to see over here as that cutoff low goes through. Now after that, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, European, bringing in moisture. See it here as well. And then that spreads toward the east. Now here we are on Sunday, getting into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. At that point, both models attempt to bring in higher pressure next week right here. So decent agreement overall. And even into next week, Thursday, they both produce a low, although the position's a little bit different here. Do you see it? But the low moves across Canada. Beyond that, they completely diverge in what they're thinking. Well, let's talk about what that's going to look like. Remember this, though. I put together some new stuff for you. It's the difference between the Ecmwf and the GFS. Now take a look. These colors represent where the European model is wetter, and these represent where the GFS is wetter, okay? European wetter in the blue to green, the GFS wetter yellow to red. So you can see, pause it, just take a close look where these models diverge. As I said, getting into week 2, we really see this separation. Despite both models seeing some sort of flow like this, with a trough over the east up to the Hudson and the ridge parked over the Four Corners, the European model brings the moisture from the tropical system here and keeps it stormy south into the parts of the eastern Corn Belt, into the mid-Atlantic, and up here in the high plains. Drier in the interior. Why drier? Well, flow this time of year, doing something like this, is still convergent. It's not yet northwest flow that produces lots of storms. What does the GFS do? Hey, looks like the same thing. There's the ridge, right? But this precip pattern is much different. It's got agreement here and the moisture from the tropical system, but look how dry it is here and into the eastern Corn Belt. Much different scenario painted by the GFS ensemble. So let's watch that out to the next couple of weeks. To go beyond that, let's talk temperatures. Our next 5 days, yeah, there's a brief shot at cooler air coming on Friday, and then the heat is back on. What I get worried about here is the rain that does come through this area. If we follow it up with high temperatures in the upper 80s, lower 90s, those are going to be evaporation rates that are like 0.3 of an inch a day. And over a week, we could evaporate 1.5 to 2 inches of moisture out of the soil. And that's what's got me so concerned. So even the rains coming through don't necessarily solve the longer term problem. And going out to day 10 through 15, well, California, I know we've had some very cool weather here lately, but we're going to bring that ridge back in and really crank those temperatures back up. What's interesting is through this, as the trough develops over the east, you can see the swaths in here of near normal temperatures, even cooler down south. And that's been a place where it's been quite cool. Looking back from May 1st to June 10th, we're talking near record cool spring weather in this area over the last 40 days or so. Well, going out longer term on the temperatures, this is the end of June through the 4th of July. And this is a 1-week sliding window all the way out through mid-July. And you notice that the European model is really keeping that jet stream farther and farther to the north. I'd like to show you that real quick because I made a plot, let's shrink that up a little bit, sorry, that shows where the jet stream has been the beginning of June, and it is way up here. And if it stays there, that's going to increase our risk of having issues with just scattered storms, no low pressure systems this winter. Now, I encourage you to watch my longer length video because in that video, I'm going to talk about these ocean temperatures and the relationship to the PDO, excuse me, and what those relationships look like with summer precipitation patterns. Check out that other video. It's included in there. And I hope you all get something out of this. And we'll talk to you again next Monday, okay? Thank you so much and have a good weekend.